Welcome to 4A Radio. We're listening to the Daystar right now. This is Sister Nkechi Fester, and we're talking about service to justice.
Hello.
All I'm catching is niggas on Twitter dissing and talking lies and lies. Can I recognize my ex-twin for the skies? Since I went in the planet, these niggas want my demise. But I am yeast to the bread, my nigga, I'm watching me rise. I'm watching niggas analyze me. How you protecting me, but make this whole plan.
Oh, I'm sorry, that was the wrong song. Either way it goes, that Daystar album riding Nkechi, because all this time the tabloid and the media have been tearing this brother down because he hadn't said nothing. So that proves one thing about us. We're guilty if we don't say nothing, and we're guilty if we do. So with that being said, we're gonna be talking about Service to Justice Day and this thing we're doing right now. You know more about it because you kind of orchestrated and put it together. Please introduce yourself to the community and tell them what you're all about.
Hello. My name is Nkechi Fester. I am a community advocate, have been so since 2011, 2012. My experience has been I received services, been a low-income community member majority of all of my life, essentially, in one way or another. I became an advocate after my second time in a shelter. Born in DC, raised in South Carolina, returned to DC in a shelter where I was able to utilize services to climb a ladder out of my circumstance. Got on my feet, started becoming stable. Recession hits, multiple layoffs, gets me evicted, lands me back in the shelter. This time, the services were not constructed in a ladder format. They were constructed in a circle, a perpetual cycle of poverty. They could not get me out of my circumstances with the services. The same services that before were constructed as a ladder to get me out of my circumstance. So my mama said I talk too much. I started speaking out. That was my personal journey. Service to justice is in its third iteration, essentially. It initially began as a brainchild born out of the Washington Legal Clinic for the Homeless. And this was around 96. I may get that year wrong. But they did a few things under it with a couple of other organizations. Some local government agencies were a part of the work. They did some facilitating and some other minor things. And then it kind of just, it's one of those things that just fizzled out. In 2011 or 12, I think it was 2012, an organizer who was working at the legal clinic at the time found some information in a box. She gathered every change agent in the city that she knew, invited us into the library in Ward 7, right by the Benning Road Library. Every change agent she could think of, it had to be 30 of us in that room. And she dropped the information on the table, said, I found this in the closet. What can we do with it? So we started having conversations. And what we came up with was facilitating a conference where individuals would facilitate issues that they were working on, thought about, were passionate about. And we just basically held the space for them to do so. The conference was over the course of 2.5 or 3 days, and it was different facilitations going on. So there would be a keynote speaker, and then there would be 4 half-hour, 45-minute, 1-hour classes that you could choose which one to go to within the time frame of the day. The very first keynote speaker we had at the very first conference was an organization based out of New Orleans called People's Institute for Survival and Beyond, or PSAB. They have an awesome undoing racism training. They are international. Like they have trainers they have trained in Africa and other countries, as well as here in the U.S., as well as their trainers are international as well. I am a trainer with PSAB after working with them so much. They were so popular as the keynote speaker that people were asking for their training. So Service to Justice in June of 2014, the same year as our first conference, we hosted PSABs, Undoing Racism Training. We ended up doing the conference every January and hosting PSAB every quarter for 3 years. And the PSAB trainings, the conference grew every year. The PSAB trainings grew in popularity to the point that by fall of 2015, we had to have 2 simultaneous trainings every quarter because everybody wanted, and we knew that analysis was going to be necessary in order to move organizations from service to justice. So the second iteration of Service to Justice was doing the conferences. In 2017, through George, the ED at Bread, who is one of our biggest supporters, has been since we started doing the conference. He paved the path for us to receive a grant. And we received our first grant from Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. And that is what we used to do the 2017 conference. 2014 through 16 conferences were essentially, this is what services can look like in DC. 2017 conference was, this is what justice could look like in DC. After that conference, we got together as a group because we were all, everyone who worked in service to justice at that point was a volunteer. There was no staff. We were just a group of concerned people who came together, saw a platform that we put together and did this work with one another year after year. In 2017, we asked ourselves, what else can we be doing besides a conference and hosting PSAB? By the last PSAB training that we hosted was actually October of 2018. And what we noticed at that time, after we did that, was there's some great organizations coming into the city training the nonprofits in DC. Boards are beginning to get trained. That's something we had advocated for, not just staff. So we thought that was great. We thought the fact that the trainings were going on was great. But we also realized a couple of things. DC has a very unique nonprofit culture. The number of nonprofits for the area is one of the things that's very unique about DC. There is a culture in the nonprofits of DC that was missing from the trainings. There is no DC history or history, not a lot of history in the majority of these trainings. And there are people who have been working and living in DC who can conduct the same type of trainings. So what we did was come up with an anti-racist training that we call Rooting Out Racism. We offered that the first time in November of 2019. The initial thought was to target social service nonprofits in the city who were ready for organizational change. An analysis was needed, so this training was created with that audience in mind. We gave the first one in November. We thought to do it every other month. The next one was in January. And then the one from March that was initially planned, of course, was canceled. That's when COVID hit. So we moved it to be an online platform. So the initial 2-day in-person training became a 4-day online training. And it's 3 hours per day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, Wednesday being a break and homework day. So, and in April of this year, Service to Justice gained its LLC. So this is what I mean. We're now in the 3rd iteration of Service to Justice. And now we're in LLC. There are 3 co-owners and 1 woman who works with us who is not a part of the company, but she does work with us. And this is what we're about. Ever since George Floyd and the uprising surrounding his murder, we've gotten a lot of calls, a lot of interest in organizations wanting to get trained. And what we saw was it wasn't just organizations anymore. So our target has expanded. That is our initial target, social service organization, nonprofits. We have talked to blue collar companies. We have talked to co-ops. We have talked to businesses. We have talked to government agencies and other entities besides nonprofits since then, and have trained some of those. We've trained board, we've trained staff. We have leadership coaching. I am working on services targeting community engagement. I am writing a training for community engagement and how to understand that work when you're talking about transformational change, organizational change. Because if there is no involvement of community members, you're essentially repeating the same cycle of the nonprofit industrial complex that has always happened. Why aren't community members at the table, even in an organizational change conversation?
I agree. To open up, my question would be the name of the organization is Rooting Out Racism, right? And you and listening to you give the spiel, I'm thinking, where are you actually rooting out racism from? Is it the individual? Is it the corporation? What are you trying to, or is it the country? Like, what if you could sum up what is rooting out racism aimed at? Like, what is its focus? Is it just trying to move it out of the workplace or the heart? Because what I'm learning in my growth and my experiences is that it's not really a black problem because we understand the condition, and so we're the knowledge bearers. But in most nonprofits, we are not the majority, which is kind of counterproductive. Like, how can people that are blind lead people that need direction? You follow me? So
Yep.
what would you think would be the focus of rooting out racism? Like, what is y'all target? Is it the board members of nonprofit organizations? Is it the community? What is it?
The target is the root of racism.
I mean,
And
hey, listen, I'm all for the
I'll
family.
explain. I'll go into it a little bit more, but
Right.
the and rooting out racism is not the name of the company; it's the name of the training.
Okay.
But the root of racism lives in the individuals we are.
Right.
That's where it exists. That existence comes from within individuals. It comes if you are raised in white culture, if you are raised in a racist society, if you are raised in the socialization of anything. So there are black people who carry out particular things that are socialized through racism. We believe certain things because racism has told it it's true, not because it's true.
Right.
The things that black people believe about other black people are born of racism majority of the time, not because that is actually our true narrative. So the root of racism starts in individuals. It goes, and this is one of the things we go through in the training, is there is an internal, and then it starts to expand over certain circles. So you have internal, individual, then you span to family, community, the workplace, your city, state, like the circles get bigger. And the influence of those things can touch any circle. So the root of racism is what we touch on. We look at all the levels, but where's the root? Where does the change begin? Where does the analysis need to apply? And those are some of the things that we do touch
I
on.
I think that one thing that is kind of, I feel like it's a blind spot in all the work that we're doing is the fact that we don't realize the 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 the, the what. So rooting out racism means that there will be a sacrifice, and that's what we don't have. Like, people that we're trying to root it out of, they're not like all of the communities that you see. And same way, we live in dilapidated communities, and they live in nice communities. That's a part of the structure. So until we can actually have a conversation about, because all of their benefits come from racism. Like when they talk about the financial gap between our communities, that's because it's systemic racism going on right now. They're silent weapons. They have something called silent weapons that they apply to our community. Same thing with this housing thing. I'm frustrated because we're always advocating for housing rights and everything, but we as a collective haven't addressed the official policy that Congress has instituted to allow the condition to exist. So I have some things I'm checking out, but I'm excited. I was looking at the slides that you guys sent over earlier that chronologically list the progression of America, which proves one thing that I was thinking of like yesterday lately. If you think about it, there were Indian native people. I don't even want to use the word Indian because that was an ignorant term given to people. See, that's what happens. Everything that people claim to know has been given to them. There's nothing they've
Yep.
researched, studied, or read. If you look at the expanse of the tribes and the packs that they had together, you realize that this whole country was saturated with people prior to other people coming here. And so that's my big epiphany moment right now. It's like they keep, but no, I'm all these historical things. I have a book with it. It has over 1,000 pictures of history, American history, and I love that book dearly. That gave it to me from the Oxon Hill Library. Every now and then they give away. They have a historical African American room. Every now
Yeah.
and then they give away books, and this book shows the progression of racism. And that's where I think we kind of missed the loop is that we're trying to address it as in it's just being social, but it's actual financial. And people don't want to give up their credit score. People don't want to say, well, I got what because I sincerely had to go through the hurdles you got to go through. And so I'm excited. I hate I missed Monday by accident. It was, so much going on with me. I don't even want to put it on the screen. You understand me? So I was like, okay,
Yeah, we're the
because
same in that we have so many things we're involved in that we can miss stuff.
yeah.
Even the
You know
stuff
what
we
I hate?
created.
I hate that you and I haven't watched your video recording from because I think back to when we were protesting in front of the Sheraton. That was very impactful. After
We
that day, I
didn't
was a
know
fan
each
of
other
yours.
then. We didn't know each
No,
other
but
then.
what I'm saying is we got to know one another. I don't even know how we first started politicking, but look
Yeah.
at when I went back and I watched that, I was like, man,
Yeah.
I've been knowing the kitchen for a while. Well, I have this one.
Yeah.
This was my
Yeah.
first introduction to it. And
Yeah.
I have your whole story. It's a very impactful story. And I shared it with my core community at Bread, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just on to the next one. Like, how people don't realize some of the tools and some of the things that we have are sincerely impactful. Like with what we're doing with V2VR. This right here is very influential. This is how we spread the word. This is the new media platform.
Yeah.
And one of my main well not my main concern, when he said call and chop it up, I didn't even know what to talk about really. But before we get into the deeper discussion of rooting out racism, I want to know what I gotta do because I don't have a PayPal account. I'm
And that's real. That's real. That's
yeah,
real. We made a
yeah.
decision, and I haven't responded to you yet, but I will. You will get
Okay.
it through chat.
Yeah, because they wins. They wins. Okay, let's get into the tell me what I need to know. Help heal me, Nkechi. Help heal me. Can you heal me? Can you
So,
service my justice?
so one of the first things that we offer on day one of the training, and
Right,
we send it out to participants in the online version. We send it out to participants before day one because it's so much we've been able to capture. When we first did the training in November and we did it in January, it was in person, and the history that we had pieces of history, examples of racism that's been from day one through current. And it
right,
spanned a long list of time. It was
right,
draped across the room. We had it on a clothesline going around the room with the emphasis of, regardless of whether you pay attention to it or not, we're always surrounded by this history.
right,
Everything we do, everything we say is surrounding this history. And there were even times when you had to duck up under it to get by, because it hits us in the head and all of that. So now that we're doing it online, we have it virtually that we send out to participants for them to take time to look through. and it's sectioned off with increments of years. I think we have up to 6 sections because what we started with is much shorter than what you have now.
Right.
But what we ask is every time we have a
Might
training,
ask.
we ask people
Add.
what's missing. Give us things that are missing. And if we train an organization or a business or an entity that specializes in something, give us things from your professional, your knowledge base that is missing from this history. So it has expanded
Right.
greatly, and it's
Right.
grown to what you've been able to view now. But that is the first thing that we sit with. We sit with the history that is
Right.
in
That's where
the
you're
space
supposed to start.
surrounding it. Exactly. Without that history, you can't acknowledge where you are today, regardless
Oh,
of
I
where
got it.
you are,
Right.
whether you're a privileged white individual and don't realize it, or whether
Right.
you're a black person steeped in trauma from living in America. You may not
Right.
know it without that history. The history is the analysis, that is the beginning of the rooting.
Right.
So once you look at it, you can't ignore it.
Right.
And that is the start of undoing it.
Racism. Right. One thing I noted that kind of irks me now is when I hear people in our circles when we be moving and everything. A lot of time people will quote the idea that the government had promised free African Americans 40 acres in a mule, and you got 40 acres in a mule production with and so that's wording has always been a part of this is what part of it. But in reality, Sherman was just using that, and it wasn't an actual something that Congress signed off on. It was just a decree he made because of the encampment of people that started to follow the army, and that's what's one of the pictures in my book, my pictorial book, which is what I'm gonna make a collage for my homework now. I'm gonna make a slideshow of these pictures
Nice.
so we can
Nice.
add it to ours. And what it says in the picture is they consider it as contraband. Contraband was the term referred to the people following the army. And so a citizen would be entitled to rights, but contraband is still property, basically. And that's what me and Reggie delved into the other day was how and we were looking at the 20-year plan and I have it with me now,
Mhm.
for housing, the revised, and on the back of it, it says in bold writing, human capital for redevelopment. And now, out of self-respect, I would never refer to somebody else as human capital. That's how laissez-faire the government is in speaking about the destiny or determining our existence.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
And so I'm with you. Whatever you need me to do, you already know. I'm with you. How have you been doing? Like, are you overworked right now?
No, I don't know. Not at all. And as an impacted community member, I have been through 9 jobs between 2007 and last year. And I have moved 8 times since 2015.
Woo, preach. Right. I got you. I
I'm
got
doing
you.
great.
I got
And
I
I'm
got
still in this relief mode.
you.
I'm
Listen.
not operating in trauma anymore due to being
Right.
so unstable so often.
Gone. Right.
I'm
I
sitting,
was
I'm
thinking
sitting down. So
I've
now
been
my
thinking
work has increased, but
right.
everything I'm doing is telling
You
the
feel
system
alive.
how not to harm me anymore. I'm loving
Right.
it. And I'm getting
I
paid
think
for it. I love it.
right. I've been thinking about how long I've been struggling, and really they were choking me out in Georgia. Couldn't get employment. I didn't have social organizations. And so it took me to move to DC and
Yeah.
be destitute and seek some services to find out. I believe I was at DOES somewhere and somebody was like, you moved. I'm pretty sure it was DOES. They were like, you've moved a lot. That's where it was at. They were like, you moved. And I never thought about that.
Mm-hmm.
But part of this to keep us like popcorn. And if you never settle, then you can't actually build because a foundation is laid in settled ground. And so I'm just like, oh man, you're right. I have moved a lot of my life, and that's a part of it.
Yep.
I kind of want to come and talk to you about this long letter, man. I read, I said, well, she done wrote a page and a half to Patty. I'm like, oh, my good. Talk about the letter, Keith. Why you write a page and a half? Tell me, did you get everything you wanted to say to the organization off the check?
Everything.
I
Everything.
thought so. I thought so.
When
Well, I appreciate it.
I am so what's interesting, one of the interesting stories, my work is I'm a storyteller. That's how I go about my
Right,
work. I'm also honest,
right,
direct.
right.
So one of my stories on my path is I started my advocacy while I was a resident at DC General Hospital with Fair Budget Coalition when it was still a part of the legal clinic, Washington Legal
Okay,
Clinic for the Homeless. That's how I met Christy. That's how I met Patty, the ED.
okay.
Christy is a grassroots fellow organizer who works at the legal clinic, and she works with our group PPA, the group you and I are in.
I
Um,
don't know if she want to be mentioned on here. Go ahead. Nah, I'm just playing.
um,
Yeah, I wasn't dropping
I,
like that. Yeah,
I when I was asked to be a board member and went to the interview, I told my mother the story. I've told the story numerous times. I went to the interview and it was a group of lawyers at the table. Patty was also there. Patty knows me. She knows how I am. She's appreciated my honesty. Um, and there were, I don't know, maybe 8 lawyers at the table. Except for 2 of the lawyers, everyone was older than me. I think these 2 individuals are younger than me.
right.
And one of the things I said while sitting at that table being interviewed by board members to become a board member was, I don't have a problem telling white people how to stop acting like white people. My mother is horrified that I said that.
Well, I mean, in
But
certain,
those are the words.
in certain spaces, yeah,
Those are the words that I act. That's not paraphrasing. Those are the exact words that I used, and they still let me on the board. That is what guides my work. Being harmed as a Black woman in America, I'm tired
right,
of it. I'm
right,
tired of not saying anything about it. That's
right,
why I became an advocate, so I could
right,
start speaking up and not only complain, not only
right,
be angry and upset and hurt, but offer you why it's harmful,
right,
why you need to change it. And
right.
here are even some ideas on how you can. That is why I've gotten the invitations to be at the tables that I've been at. And now I am a board member of the legal clinic. So I like that my path is, I started advocacy there and now I'm on the board. So now I'm Patty's boss, essentially. But something happened within PPA that I disagreed with. And the reason I disagreed with it is because, as well meaning as the individuals at the legal clinic who I know are,
Keith, we
not
making this
everyone,
awful hot.
huh?
I said you making this recording awful hot. Like when I share it, because I sent it out to the, all I don't know. I don't know what to say. I can't feel those. I don't know. You are that spirit, and you're expressing yourself now. But I'm just saying, keep going though. Keep going.
I don't know how else to say it. When I
Okay.
see
Well, look.
something that's not right, I don't have a problem speaking out about it. I say it to the individual that I see it in.
Right.
That's essentially what that letter was. I saw
Mm,
something that wasn't right. And it's this conversation I've been hearing lately under numerous issues on social media. I see people saying, well, back in the day, I remember when, yeah, it was wrong then.
yeah.
It's
Right.
always been wrong. It's always happened,
Right.
but it's always been wrong, which is why the method I operate from is a place of honesty and transparency. This is
Mm,
how this
yeah.
act is
Right.
wrong. This is how I view it. Here's my suggestion on what you can do about it.
Right.
That was what was behind that letter.
I want to say this. When I realized something, the dig was up. This is even before I learned the terminology, nonprofit industrial complex. Right. I was working well, not work. Well, I mean, it's work, but I don't consider it work. It's part of life. You know what I'm saying? Part of living and fighting, right? At the other organization, and I was listening to some people give their testimonies about how long they've been down and participating with CAC and all these things. And oh, I've been coming here for 20 and 30 years. And you know, one of my uh, people that are actually, Mrs. Acker, she's like, I've been coming here for 30 years. And I'm like, obviously the safety net, the safety net got holes in it or something. Y'all stuck in a hole because you shouldn't have to seek social services for 30 years if they're doing what they're supposed to do by stabilizing your life. And so when that light went off, and that light went off probably, it was after, I think it was after the rally. The rally was like the first actual protesting idea where I was a participant in it and I was actually doing things and giving interviews and leading. Other than that, I had just been going, like the first public thing I ever did was when Troy, the guy in Savannah, Georgia, that was accused of killing the officer. It was proof that everybody that had testimony on it recanted the story and just said, "Hey, it's a product of the time. I don't want to participate no more." And they still executed the man. I went up to the Jackson State Penitentiary, and all the news stations were there, and it was thousands of people, and they still went on with their business. The same way they still going on with their business with everything else. The federal government was supposed to run out of money this month, like this week, and they extended their they figured out how to write them some more money in a phone call, right? But they haven't given us
Real
another
quick.
stimulus since June or July. It ran out in July, and they were slow about getting it in. There was still people that haven't received a dime then. And then last night, did you watch the debate last night?
No.
Papa Joe said out of his mouth that right now, because they had to talk about black folks, although wasn't no black folks seen or present. Yeah, right now with this COVID, he's let over 200,000 people die, and that is one in every thousand African Americans. And by November, that'll be 1 in 500. Those numbers sound too specific to say that this is intel you have that we don't have. Like, so it seems like it might be a metric to it. Kind of like, hey, y'all following it that close, and every 500, one of them dying and all of this and all. And so I'm ready right now. We kind of got off on our initial strategy, kind of, and we kind of fell back, but we had to because of COVID. But I'm ready to go do something. I really am. And that's
Yeah.
why, this came about. I was thinking I haven't been in a meeting in a while. The meetings had even fallen off. Like when the pandemic first hit, it took me probably about a month to get used to just doing things through my computer, and then it picked back up. And I was catching meetings here, doing this here, going there, doing this here, just through the computer. So I was like, man, this is gravy, coochie. But unbeknownst to everybody, then I let my little stimulus run out. So I'm like, man,
But I think that's one of the things that COVID exposed was, and the example that I've seen it the greatest is in the school system.
right,
But it's not the only place I've seen it. It's like, oh, you can do this thing we've been asking you to do, and you said you can't do. But now the school
right,
is online. Now you're doing it. Came up
right,
with it like that, like
right.
nothing. Oh, so you
Listen,
can do this.
right. You just
You
made me think of something too.
could have been able to do this stuff that we've been
Right,
asking you to do. It's
right,
exposing stuff.
right.
So they've been lying. They've been
Yeah,
lying for
of course. This is what I said to Reggie in our stream the other day was the fact that I realized that if you think about schooling and all, I said all it really was a holding cell because they weren't teaching. I learned the etymology of education, where the word comes from, the Latin root, and it has another root to it as well. But it's basically about mentoring. And I read this book because I'm heavy in my religion and I kind of lead in my church and stuff about how it played into we are always considered the minority. Well, how are we really the minority? In every city principality, if we're not the majority, we're next, like we're more than any other minority. You understand what I'm saying? But specifically here in DC and in Brooklyn, and this is another thing that it's all about narrative and how they pitch us history. Because people could think there are more black people in Georgia than there are in Brooklyn. And one borough in New York City have more African Americans than all of Georgia. Now that's something to think about. So that's one big thing I've been trying to do, especially with this election going on, is wake up to your narrative. You know what I'm saying? Wake up to what they selling you and what you can actually go and research and learn for yourself. Because that's and
Mm.
I'm upset with a lot of these parents that don't want to educate their children. Like, what better education can they get than people that are actually raising them? You understand what I'm saying? You don't have time. Right now, we on lockdown. So figure out how to have time. I mean, we're
People
still on
don't have
lockdown.
time.
Huh?
People don't have time. Either
Right.
people are don't have the narrative, because let's be honest, we in straight survival mode.
Yes, we are. We are.
Right,
We are.
all we trying to do is get to the next step. That might not be
Close.
the next day.
Right. Close my eyes and
The
don't worry about
next,
it.
just move, just keep
Yeah.
going,
Right. I've been
figure it
coming to the
out.
studio every day.
What are the options? That's what we trying to get to. We don't have the luxury of building wealth. We don't have we don't have a lot of luxuries.
None.
We don't. We in straight survival mode. And I even realized how deep rooted that is after moving in here and thinking I'm still nervous about things I ain't got to be nervous about no more
Right.
because I'm stable now. But I'm
Right.
still in this mindset of I gotta survive, I gotta survive, I
Right.
gotta survive,
Right.
I gotta survive. Not realizing, and this is on a large scale. I knew it, but on a large scale, I was still operating in survival mode.
Yeah.
And I'm finally stable, even
Right.
feeling the relief of that stability, but I was still in a lot of ways in I gotta survive, I gotta survive. And after a while, I was like, what the hell am I doing?
Yeah.
Somebody else had to point it out to me. You
Right.
can let that go now. Move on to other stuff. Because in that, you could. We are
Right.
still in survival mode. So, and there are examples. I know mothers, single mothers, two kids, different age groups, different grades. She work at night. How's she supposed to virtual teach her with her children?
He's not.
Where is she finding time to rest? And she's trying to build a business aside from the one she's getting paid to do work for.
Right.
So that's a lot going on at one time.
Yeah.
When does she have time to truly educate? Not saying she can't find time, but think about that 24-hour trajectory. She got to find time to sleep, but she got to be up with her kids during the day. What can she put in on the business, the business she's trying to build, so she don't have to work for people, but because she ain't got income coming in from that, she got to go to work, and right now she's working overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And the
Yeah.
kids
When I was in.
using two different computers because they in two different grades. Does she have access to that? Did they provide
Right.
that stuff for her? Or did she have to come out of pocket and get it?
Yeah.
You got to think about all of that at one time. All of that at once. How do we
Yeah. But
do? We have to find time to truly educate our children.
right. Well, what I'm saying about educating is that if the schools were really just holding our children until they turn 18 and sending them to work, I mean, really and truly, the schools weren't educating them in the first place. On how a
Yep.
child to be reared and educated is in how to be a support structure to take care of their parents when they get old, to teach them how to survive, how to cook. Like, they don't teach homemaking school no more, for as I know. You understand what I'm saying? Like, these natural things, like, you
Nope.
need to be responsibility. They don't teach responsibility. You know what I'm saying? Like, curiosity. Like, just sit down sometime and read a book. Reading a book is a form of education. Okay? And so all of these just simple things that, like I'm saying, this
Yeah.
Paul should be seen. This is what I told to the Dominoes, my little private group. I said, and anytime there's a crisis, there's great opportunity. And all sincere entrepreneurs, people that have that spirit in them, understand that. It's great opportunity because all the schools we were doing were building athletes. Everybody else
Yep.
they were sending to get a job. Go get a job. Learn how to do math, algebra, trigonometry if your brain can stand it. And and even if you speak, this is what I found out because I done started talking to people on like really on YouTube and stuff like that. You know, I start communicating socially through here, and it irks me how often when I'm kicking out some historical fact or some historical stuff that I researched and studied and took the time to be patient and sit still and learn, somebody that I can tell by their comment don't tell me how to speak. Oh, you shouldn't structure like if the message is conveyed, then the communication loop is. And how are you to critique me on how I'm typing? This is a social structure. This ain't nothing. This ain't my job. This is what I'm doing leisurely. But that's how strong and systemic racism is within this country. And they still try to tell us we don't talk right.
Co-opting that. Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. If you can correct me on the way I say something, you understood it.
That's what I'm saying. That's what
So
I
why
said. And when I
don't you
said that,
say it the way you say it? Now, if you ask me, wait, what did you mean by that? Then you don't understand it. And I
right,
can understand that. I can change that. If you don't
right,
even know what the heck I just said,
right,
okay, I can, because I want you to get it. But
right,
if you can tell me the correct thing to say versus
right.
what I said, I don't need to change nothing because
Nothing.
you
Right,
got it when I said it the first time. I'm
right.
not changing. Nope. Nope.
No,
And I don't.
I broke it down to the millennial text. I put GTOH on him. GTO. And the point is, I got that. A lot of people clicked on, gave me a like. You know, feel good, you know, like. I like, how you gonna come in and critique? And what we were talking about was the origin of Hawaii and how the gold company and how the profiteers of this country seized that country from a sovereign state that had been communicating with the world, had treaties with other nations, and they said this is a strategic point. We need this right here. And so that's how I'm looking at racism. Like to cure racism, the root is so deep because there's still people in Hawaii. Listen, before I left Georgia, now when I first got here, before I got my first job, I realized how hard it was. I said, I came up with the idea. I'm starting my own nonprofit, rebuilding the community. And that's the name of it, right? I haven't done anything to get the LLC and all because it's
Mhm.
groundwork that I'm trying to lay prior to that. But
Absolutely.
yeah, but I'm like, yeah, because this is the harvest is, it's plentiful. Like you can feel your whole life doing this type of work, And the
Yeah.
guy was trying to tell me about the origins of Hawaii, and I don't watch YouTube footage, I don't read books, and I got a book right now it has all the major documents that America has, kind of. I bought it from
Mm,
Costco. They put that knowledge everywhere, and it has the treaty from Queen Fulani. I can't say her name right; it's a long name, but you understand what I'm saying.
yeah.
And her father is in the Capitol Rotunda right now. If you see the images of these people, you know that these were brown, melanated people that could be our cousins. If you look at the hair texture, all of that, these are black people. And since they were black people, they had no right to sovereign anything. And that's the same thing the way it is over here now, you know. And so I don't know Nikita, but I do have a few allies. And I
Oh,
appreciate you.
oh yeah.
I really do.
Most
I
definitely.
really do. Yeah. But listen, man, we've been talking about 43 minutes. I try to keep it about an hour, really and truthfully. Like the best footage be about 30 minutes, but I try to keep it about an hour. What are some what are some takeaways? What should the community know from my little brief conversation? Because we really didn't dive in deep. We just talked back and forth for a minute. What should the country know about what we're trying to do? Or the people that are going to watch this?
Um, we need an analysis. We need an analysis. White people need to understand the history, to understand how they uphold the system that is harmful to everyone who ain't white, who ain't a white man.
Right.
People of color need the analysis to understand two things. If you're black or a person of color, how we carry the trauma, whether we realize it or not, and we don't know it till we know that history. If you are not black, how you can have issues in this country because you're not a white man, but you can also be anti-black and not realize it. if you don't have that analysis, if you don't know the history.
Right.
Those are some of those are the basic starting points. But
Right.
becoming anti-racist is a healing journey. It's
Right.
not a one training. It takes
Right.
more than one day, one lesson, it takes more than that. It is ongoing work. You are talking about undoing socialization. Think of someone who's grew up in an abusive relationship and ended up getting in a relationship and or married to someone who's abusive because that's what they know.
Right.
That's what they know. So they get away from the people who were abusive to them. But
Right.
their mind, their actions, their habit, their thought process is still there.
Right.
It takes a while. It takes therapy. It takes being around other people. It takes different perspectives for them to undo that socialization of the
Right.
trauma they've endured for how long? You go from childhood to adulthood in an under abuse. Your
Right.
mindset is one way. That even though you don't want to be there, you done tried to get away from it, you done fought to get away from it, your mindset is still that of someone who has been abused. That takes time to undo that. We have been traumatized. And privilege, racism, is harmful, abusive behavior to white people. So they are benefiting from it, but it's a straight lie. So they have to undo it as well. But because of how embedded it is in us, in all of us, the undoing takes a while. So you
I
can be
agree.
woke and still dumb.
Right.
You can go to one training and still not know. You can
Right.
have one black friend and still be racist as hell. And
Right.
those are just some examples of it takes a lot more to undo how this country socializes us. We
Right.
believe in things because we've been told that's the way it's supposed to be. And
Right.
that is the lie. We don't know each other. We don't know everything. We don't know everybody. We cannot live in this context of all men, all women, all black people, all this, all that.
Right.
That's not the case. And it takes a while. So realize that just because somebody been to one training don't mean they anti-racist. It's not
What does an
enough.
anti-racist person look like? Before we get off,
I
what
don't
does an
know.
anti-racist person look like?
An anti-racist person, essentially, and this is my personal perception of the term.
Yeah, that's what I want. I don't want any. I want your personal perception.
Exactly. Gotcha. An anti-racist person is an individual who understands I grew up with a socialization. I know now that socialization ain't true. So I need to be careful of how I move forward from this day on. That means asking questions, asking for consent, asking and giving grace, and am I being harmful? Being direct about it. Is this harmful if I ask? Because I realized what was, but I don't know about this context. Can you
Right.
help me understand this context? Because I want to understand.
Okay.
And that is not the same, and that is without burdening a person of color to do the emotional labor. Like not
Right.
expecting them to lift that burden from you
Right.
is
Yes. Can't
different
stand
from
that.
asking them, I'm trying to lift this burden. Am I going about it the right way? And don't depend on them to heal you. That's different.
Mm-mm.
That's giving them the burden of your
Right.
healing from racism and privilege mindset. Don't do that. But step forward differently.
Right.
Your analysis was wrong this whole time. What actions have you been doing under that wrongful analysis that you can't do no more? You ask questions, you gain knowledge, you go about just like you practice something different, just like you getting a degree in a field. Eventually, you got to practice it. And if you think about
Right.
it, you practice medicine, you practice
Right.
law. Even after you
Right.
get your degree,
It's all a practice. It's always a
it's all
practice.
a practice. It's the
Already
same thing with undoing. You have to
racist.
practice
Got to constantly practice. Saying I'm not. Yeah,
constantly.
but
And there are
is
even
that
fields where
more
every number, so that's an anti-racist person who practices undoing that socialization.
right? Right. But is that more so for the people of of position, or because I mean like the oppressed people, are they really to do go through that process as well? Like
Yeah.
oppressed people.
Here is how it affects us greatly. Everybody don't know they traumatized.
Right, true.
Everybody don't know we are living out practices of what harms us.
Right.
We don't realize it. We think poor black people poor because they don't
They ain't
save
doing
money.
that. Yeah, 'cause they ain't doing that.
They
Right.
ain't trying to find a job. They
Yeah.
ain't worried about they getting all of these services from all of these places because they too lazy to work. How
Right.
about they know a job at McDonald's don't pay them enough to take care of the
To support their
responsibilities
family.
they got now. Even though people tell them, well, you start somewhere, you start with something, it won't even pay their rent.
Right.
It
So it makes
won't
no
even
sense.
rent. Why would I go
So
apply it? Because it's
you're gonna be
something
wasting your time. Yeah.
they can have you jobs like that do one or two things. They work you to death and the paycheck still ain't enough to cover rent, or you'll work to death for 3 months, then you'll work half to death for 3 months, and then they take you off the schedule. You ain't fired, so you can't collect unemployment. You don't know if you
I've
should get another
lived that.
job because they ain't said nothing. They just ain't put you on the schedule for 3 months.
Lived experience. Lived experience.
Many
On
people
what?
have. People don't know we go through this. And well, just go look for
Lived.
another job. Well, what was
Right.
your last job? Well, I don't know if I had a last job. I don't know if I still got a job. Like, what do you do with that? You can lie
Lived
on the
experience.
all kind of stuff comes from that, right? And I've lived it as well. I'm not going back to retail because a job and employment program is telling me I have to take this job because I done been laid off from 3 jobs in 4 years. So now I need something. But I'm asking you, if you're a job employment program, why don't you have ties to jobs that will help me pay my rent? Why is
Yep.
all you have the same jobs? I can look in the classified as at home. Why
Right.
am I demanded to come here and do on your computer what I can do in a library or my own house, and you ain't helping me no different than that process?
Right.
Why
Right.
is this mandatory? Because you think I'm lazy and dumb, and you got to keep an eye on me to make
Don't
sure I'm
talk about it.
actually looking for a job.
Right.
Because you putting it on me that the system that is
Right.
designed to fail me is my
Right.
fault.
Hold
And
on.
I'm not going to believe that no more. That is what
Let-
we believe that. We believe
Right.
we either
Yeah.
believe it or we get so
We say
frustrated
it.
with the
Yeah.
system
Right.
because we know it, we see
Right.
it, and maybe we can't voice it. Maybe we can't analyze it,
I'm
but we
saying we
can
put it on other
feel
people
it.
though.
We
Yeah.
feel it and we put it on other people. Some of
But
us
no.
who are given opportunity, we
Right.
get a good job, we can buy a car, we can buy a house, we can do this, we can do that. So, oh, they just lazy because I was able to do it. No, you were allowed to do it. Everyone is not allowed to advance in this system.
Let
And
me
we
let me share
know
this story,
and
Nkechi.
we carry that stress in the
Right.
way that we go about our lives, and we don't even know this history has built this on our shoulders, and that is what we're carrying around.
I
We
got an
don't we
example.
might not have that analysis.
I got an example. UPO. UPO said, we're gonna help you get into the workforce. Some plumbing, construction, something, do something. You gotta go through this training first. It was 2 weeks of being able to come to a room that's in the form of a classroom and sit and talk. That's no sincere training, no sincere teacher with no I can't even remember her name now. She sang with one of the go-go band. But she go over there and just you came today, I can't believe you made it back. After those 2 weeks, they said, okay, let's aptitude test. I'm college educated. High school. So I can do all this. I know how to read, add, structure a sentence, and everything. I go to the place which was in my neighborhood at the time, in Northeast, the training facility, but they will never actually allow me to participate in the class. Now, it was nothing other than the system saying, no, you can't come through this mechanism. No, we're not going to aid you. And they pushed me out of the class, out of the UPO class. I had went through all of those hurdles to get into the class to learn a new trade, which I already know how to do stuff. They had us drilling in nails, hammering in nails. I build stuff. Like I know how to come on. And then I was like, okay, but it's a stipend to come along with it. So I dedicated 2 to 3 months of my time dealing with
Mm.
DOS, going to UPO. Then when I did do that, I got teed off at my advisor at DOS that sent me there. And when I checked on it in the email, it said, I have a suit against DOS. I just ain't filed it yet. You
Mm-hmm.
know what she told me? She said, I didn't send you over to, what is it, Petey Green? I didn't tell you to go over there. Oh, man, I got you in the email. You suggested this is where I need to go. As Petey Green doing the same thing that you're supposed to be doing. You understand what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
it's not the individual. It's what the
No.
individual is living inside. And in wrapping up, we 56 minutes in. I appreciate you coming to 24/8 radio so we can chop it up about service to justice. I want to say I love you foremost because you are a sister,
Me
and us
too.
brown people got to stick
Yeah.
together. On top
Yes.
of that, I want to say this is what I thought you brought in my mind was the fact that really in service and justice or building anything, before you can build your vehicle or mechanism of survival, you have to build yourself. And in building yourself, you have to unpack all of these lies that have been fed to you through the education system, through the job equation, through all of that. You have to unpack all of that. And so that's how it affects us. And that's why
Exactly.
we have to use service to justify our right to the opportunity to prosper, basically. You follow me? And we got to schedule a
Definitely.
time because there's some things I've watched. They had Fahrenheit 9/11. Have you seen Fahrenheit 9/11 by Michael Moore?
Mm-hmm.
They got one called Fahrenheit 11/9, but it's about our current president. And I'm telling you, when you see the dichotomy,
Whoa.
when you see, no, Nikita, I'm not lying. When you see how in South Carolina, Bernie Sanders won all of the electoral votes. They created some super electorates and gave it to Sister Clinton. And it was even a third party candidate that outscored her in South Carolina. And Michael Moore, because he have the complexion for the protection, can go out here and reveal some of this stuff. And people just don't know to tune in. And they created some super delegates, gave it to her. Now she wins South Carolina. So now I'm going back and forth with one of my partners, one of my brothers, and he's telling me, yeah, go out and vote for this man. But I know this man's history. I know this man's track record, and everybody should vote. And I voted up until a point until I broke, and I realized that regardless, you're not even a blimp in the demo. You're not even a blimp on their radar. They're in a total different life experience than you are. You just fodder. You just cannon fodder. And so
Yeah.
last night I died laughing at that debate. I really did. It was so hysterical. I expect like, why is everybody blowing up? Ooh, he said this. Oh, that proves he racist. Like, we know he
I
racist
wouldn't
since
do that.
85. Like, that ain't no epiphany. That
Yeah.
ain't no epiphany to say, oh, he said something racist. He racist. He's gonna say racist stuff. You understand? And so I just, man, look, like I said, listen, stay safe, stay up, and we need to schedule it. Because what I want to do, I want to share. I thought about it. What can I start doing just to? Because we got to start sharing more of this information. I'm gonna go home and make the do my homework. I ain't had homework in 30 years. I'm gonna go home, do my homework, and and but that Fahrenheit 11/9, like Michael Moore got some stuff that I really want
Yeah.
PPA and our constituents to actually sit down as a group. How we got to figure out how we're gonna do it and watch because the history repeats itself. They ain't coming up with super new strategies. They're just altering just a little bit. Let's do change this wording. Like it wasn't Representative Byrd, but somebody back in the 70s when they were talking about busing. Said, look, we don't say nigga 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 no more. We say busing. And all just changing up the terminology. And so
When
I
you say
see all of
anything,
this stuff because I feel like I'm on my square, and then but my people ain't. So
yeah,
when I appeal to my mother, when I appeal to my friends, because they're still under hypnosis, the
yep.
Matrix. Everybody says it. The Matrix was a documentary. It wasn't no, Nkechi, this got to my mind the other day. This is called podcasting. Those people live in pods. Do you follow me? Do you, man, you got
Indeed,
podcast.
indeed, indeed.
Yes. But
Yes,
listen. As long as my heart is ticking, I'm fighting for you. You hear me?
and I'm fighting with you, brother.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So we signing off now. This is 24/8 Radio, and this is one of my most distinguished friends in the district, Nkechi Fester. She's out here sitting on boards and doing everything else because she is a strong black woman and she is my friend. Thank you so much, Keith.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Signing off. I'm gonna send it to you too now.